Okay, we're live.
There we are. There's people coming in.
Lovely.
Oh.
Welcome, guys, to Seller Sessions. This week we've got Anthony Lee in the room. Say hello, Anthony.
Hello, Anthony.
So, guys, where are you from? Do you want to just pop a message in the chat box? Come say hi.
Don't be shy.
Oh, wait. Are we doing a haiku now? Sorry.
Getting technical now.
Here we go. David from Vienna. Luxembourg. Romain. Who else have we got out there? Don't be shy.
Wow, this is quite a worldwide audience.
We've got Mercy from San Francisco. Mark from Cologne. Constantine from Belgium. Stefano from Dubai. Delaware, a good tax haven. Got Colin from the UK. San Diego.
Seneca,
yeah.
Colin from the UK.
Okay, so shall we get started? Yeah, do you want to just do a quick rundown of what we're just discussing, Anthony? Obviously, we've got you in to ask a series of questions on ranking, and today you actually just finished up a post. Do you want to give the audience a little bit of background of what you were doing and what you were measuring and the results for that?
Yeah, sure. I do this pretty much weekly, actually. We just look at different aspects of a listing or different aspects of what is available to everybody to see on Amazon. And then we try to figure out whether or not we can find strong correlations between one thing and, well, typically in ranking, right? Yeah. So, and we do that. I mean, pick something. If we haven't done it yet, we will. We do this with every single little thing you can see on a listing. Like, does it appear that there's a correlation between the ranking and that thing? And the one we just got done doing was size of seller account. So a lot of people think the bigger your seller count, the more favoritism Amazon seems to show. And some people have thrown out arbitrary numbers and all that, but we actually looked at the data. We took a handful of popular, highly trafficked keywords. We looked at the top 10 listings on each page one, because I think everybody would agree top 10 positions on page one that's a viable spot to be in. Yeah. And then we looked at the size of their accounts and confirmed through the sample size that people with smaller accounts, less than 20 products for sale, and people with medium-sized accounts, around 40 or more, take up 80% of all the listings. So they have just as much of an opportunity to be there as another. But the last little percentage are all 100-plus product accounts, and they seem to gravitate towards the top. So it looks like sellers with over 100 products for sale more often than not are within the top 3 spots on page one for major keywords, which, once again, this is just a correlation. Correlation does not mean causation. All we can do is speculate because we're not engineers for Amazon. But just thought that was pretty interesting for people to know. Kind of gives people perspective as far as their goals, right? Like, where do you want to be at 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, and having an idea in your head that, okay, well, I know I want to be one of those guys. Yeah. So what does that mean? It means you're going to have over 100 products for sale. That's it's at very least that kind of creates that situation. So
cool. Well, look, let's start get started now. I just thought the audience, we could share that, as that's a little bit of new information you generated as of this morning with your team. Do you want to just back up a bit and give a little bit about a background on yourself for those who may be not familiar?
Sure. I am an Amazon seller, my own brands of products for about 3 years now. I also am the COO, Director of Operations, for the product launch service Zonblast, and we're actually rebranding into Six Leaf. So you may hear one of those two terms, but they mean the same company. And as of very recently, a couple weeks ago, I became a equal partner in Zon Squad, the paid mastermind group.
Yeah.
So more and more opportunity to see tons and tons of data. It's really fun, actually.
Cool. Well, look, let's guys, what we'll do is I've got a series of questions that I want to break down and ask Anthony so we can go right in the dirt with everything related to optimization on a listing from top to bottom. And so obviously, please start posting your questions in the chat so that at the end of the conversation, we can then get your questions answered as well. And obviously, some of this stuff may be answered along the way. So without further ado, let's get going. So let's start with the URL itself. Explain what a canonical URL is and how we can benefit from that.
All right. So a canonical URL is actually the URL, the keyword embedded URL that Amazon assigns your listing. How you find it, you go to your listing, right click, view the source, and then search, which on a PC, Control F for canonical, and you'll see it. A lot of people are mistaken and they think that the canonical is just the standard Amazon URL with the ASIN. But Amazon actually gives you a keyword embedded URL by taking some of the keywords out of your title. And this is just speculation, but we believe this is because Amazon prefers traffic to be run towards some type of structure that gives the algorithm a nudge as far as what keyword direction to go in. And so it categorizes your listing with these specific set of keywords drawn directly from your title. So knowing that, how the canonical can be used to your benefit is anytime you send traffic to your listing, you should definitely give the algorithm that nudge by utilizing a keyword embedded URL. One of the most powerful ones that we know is completely above board because Amazon provides it to you is the canonical URL. So if you run promotions or run ads to a URL, you will most certainly rank faster for any keywords or key phrases within that canonical URL.
Okay, so then how would you implement that? So this is to say you just launched your listing. Where does the decision making come into play, and how would you implement that to your benefit?
Typically, I suggest that when you create your listing, you start thinking about these. People have been speculating how to manipulate the URL with some level of control, but as with everything in Amazon, they don't give you a whole lot of control. They give you the illusion that you might have some. So a lot of times, if you're lucky, the first 5 keywords that you put in your title, the first 5 words that you put in your title, before you break it up with any kind of dashes or other symbols, if you're lucky, those 5 will be the ones, or it'll be the first 4, and then it'll pick a random one. And that means that if you did your job right in creating the title in the first place, which we'll go over, that should work for you. But it doesn't happen that way 100% of the time. And so basically, you can restructure the wording of your title. It'll take 36 hours for the canonical to officially change in Amazon's system. I do want to point something out, though, that I didn't tell you this when we talked, but it's something I think a lot of people don't know about. If you're looking for a URL to run advertising to or to run promotions to for the benefit of increasing keyword ranking, and you're stressing over the canonical, maybe you can't get it to work as quickly or the right way. I also suggest using what I like to call the Twitter link. A lot of people have completely forgot that this exists, but on every listing, there are social icons. If you click the Twitter button, it gives you a tweet, and in that tweet, there's a link to your product. We've tested this with promotions. It will rank for relevant keywords.
Right. Okay. That's an interesting one.
Yeah,
so just a little nugget wanted to put out there along with the canonical.
Excellent. Well, look, before we jump into the title, let's just go. We're going to take a step back quickly. We've discussed before, and you've got some data on this, is that with regards to ranking a listing, we discussed that you can bring a listing back from the dead and the negatives and the positives, but explain what the floating up process is.
Okay. I love how you named it the floating up process.
Well, you've got a name for it, but I call it the floating up process, which is Amazon gives you a period of time of love where they'll float your listing up to see if there's a possibility of gaining conversions, but then after that you're on your own. But I'll allow you to explain.
That's what we always thought that it was too. It was a period of love, but it turns out Amazon isn't that free with its love. There is an actual process behind this. So it's what you're referring to is what I call the honeymoon period.
That's right.
And essentially, what that means is what we've discovered through running promotions. This is entirely researched through running hundreds and hundreds and thousands of promotions for one day within a very, very short period of time, for one day over the course of the day, for 4 days, 5 days, 7 days, 2 weeks, every other day. We've done it in almost every section that you can think of. So in doing that, what we discovered was that the algorithm appears to work by using averages of benchmark periods of time. So at that point, the most important thing for us to figure out was what were those benchmarks? When can we expect to see movement, and based on what? And we discovered that hourly appears to be important to the algorithm, because if you release 500 units inside of an hour, even if you don't sell anything for 4 more days, you should see at least some movement. We have experienced that in the past. Daily is really important. It also appears that weekly is, because we would see jumps in rank after, like 3 days promotion gets to a certain point, and then 7 days and it changes position again. So that tells us, okay, well, the weekly is important. It also appears that there is a point mid-year, maybe 6 months, maybe 24, 25, 26, 27, 28 weeks. We're not sure exactly, but we noticed that rankings seem to jump more often than not down at that moment. And we were thinking, why is that? And all the minds that I was...
is it a jump, or is it off the cliff? Does it just jump like a few places or cliffs?
It depends on the activity. Sometimes it jumps a few places. Sometimes it's off the cliff. How I got on this particular path of study was me and all my colleagues that started around the same time were seeing jumps. Mine jumped significantly. I mean, my main product, the first product that I launched with, was at between position 6 and 4 for its main keyword for 6 whole months. Like, I got there quick and I stayed there. And then all of a sudden it jumped from position 6 and 4 to 14. So 10 whole spaces almost off of page 1, which was kind of serious for me. And then we started seeing bigger jumps for other keywords, other colleagues. And we were wondering, does Amazon just show favoritism for, new products? And I was like, there's no way. That's silly. There's got to be a reason. So then we started testing with promotions, more spread out, more maintenance. And we noticed that with increased periods of conversion, stimulation, that jump would be less and less. And we figured out, okay, there's a half-year point in this algorithm as far as the averages are concerned. And the reason why you're falling off is because you have all those bad days, those bad weeks, those just slow months, and they bring the average down. But up to that point, you're registering a null, like it's not counting against you. So it's super easy if you keep racking up weeks and weeks and weeks of good sales. It's super easy to climb up in rank. But if you have those lull periods after that 6-month mark, that's when you see. So that first 6 months are critical, both for ranking, but also for maintaining, so that your long-term numbers don't have as horrible of an effect on your rankings.
So what would be interesting to know, which you may or may not have data on, is that you may have a product that is a seasonal product that's gone out of stock, and you're coming back into that season. Let's just say leading up to Q4 as a Christmas product, and so you want to make the decision. Well, do we carry on with the same listing if it hasn't got lots of reviews, for instance, or would it be worthwhile starting a new listing to obviously enhance that for that period of time? Obviously, there's a lot of stuff to weigh off there. Do you have any data on that, or ever did?
We don't have seasonal data yet. We will. It's just right now a lot of the data collection is manual, and
Yes. Yeah.
we can't, we have to wait for the season to come to do that manually. So I'm waiting until we're at a point where I can pull aside one of our developers and say, okay, I want you to take all the aggregate data from the past and show me these numbers, in which case then I'll be able to report more accurately on this. But one thing I want to mention that a lot of people may not be aware of, the conversion rate that's important in ranking is not just overall conversion rate, it's relative conversion rate.
Right.
With
Now,
that being the case, seasonal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Break down what that is exactly for the audience.
So, two most important factors in ranking: sales velocity and relative conversion rate. Relative conversion rate is the conversion rate for that keyword relative to all of the other conversion rates on the page.
Right. Okay.
So what that means is if you're selling a Halloween costume and it's not Halloween, your conversion rate, first of all, your sessions go down, way down. So your conversion rate isn't even that affected. But even if it is, so's everybody else's, because they're all selling Halloween costumes.
Yeah.
So for seasonal products, that's a major thing to keep in mind. It's you're on the same footing because all of you have dropped dramatically in sessions, and even if conversions, you're still going to stay about level with each other.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, look, let's move into the title now. We kind of covered parts of it when we were talking about the manipulation of the URL. So let's just back it up. Let's talk title lengths. Let's talk the importance of the keywords play, where to place them, etc., from your point of view.
Okay. As far as the importance that keywords play, it appears that the title keywords are pretty much the most important when it comes to relevance at all. There are other aspects of the listing that we can point to specifically and see this is, important to SEO. This is what the spiders crawl, but it almost seems like it's really difficult to rank for keywords, at least coming out of the gate, that aren't in your title. Just because immediately that's the first thing that Amazon's algorithm looks at for relevance. So having your most relevant and important keywords in your title is crucial. Where to put it? Well, that all depends on what your goal is. So first, we should understand that the title plays a part in sessions and getting the click, if for no other reason, because it validates the search. So somebody searching, the first thing they look at is the main image, which obviously we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah.
That tells them what they're looking for. But then they have to validate that to make sure that that is exactly the thing they're looking for. So they look at the title before they make that click. So that means that the relevant information needs to be before it gets cut off by the browser window. Yeah. And every browser window cuts it off at a different point. So you're pretty much safe if you decide to get the most relevant keyword within the first 80 characters, because that's the mobile app, I think, cuts it off at around 80. So if you can get the most important keyword in the first 80 characters, that tells everybody, hey, your search was validated. There it is. This is the thing you're looking for. Now, you have 80 characters to do that with, so you can fit a lot more than just garlic press in there. So I also recommend utilizing that real estate to put in a benefit of some kind, just to entice people to decide to click on your listing.
Can you give the audience an example of a title where you're explaining this, bearing in mind and keeping it within the 80 characters, and bearing in mind the canonical URL placement that you're looking for manipulation? Sorry, I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you now. Yeah.
So The example that I like to use, I just actually stumbled upon it a couple weeks ago, was let's say you're a buyer. We're going to build this from the perspective of the buyer. That's going to make it easier for the seller to get the benefit they want. So let's say you're a buyer and you're searching for a cat brush for your cat, a grooming brush for your cat. Mm-hmm. You're looking mainly at the pictures, and what are you going to see? You're going to see mostly brushes that are on a white background. Because that's what Amazon says they have to look like in the main images. Yeah. So and brushes look probably similar to each other, but you're still going to be looking for at least the cleanest, clearest, best looking brush. When you see that brush, you're going to look over the title and make sure that it's a cat brush. Mm-hmm. If it says dog brush, you may choose to move to the next one. So as the seller, what is your best bet? If you sell a brush that is a grooming brush for pets, what you might choose to call it instead of a dog brush is a pet brush for dogs, cats, rabbits, and more, mm-hmm. long or short fur. That's within your 80 characters. What you've included in those 80 characters is what it is. Definitely says cat, so it's a brush, and you can use it for your cat. So you just won that one buyer, and possibly even more. The benefit that you've just conveyed is that it really works for any pet, for any length hair. So, and then within your canonical, you should have the main keyword there is pet brush. If you can fit it in there, maybe you might actually use the word grooming. I mean, this is where you get creative. This is where the art of the science comes in.
Well, this is where you're coming from the search page into the listing itself. So CTR is going to play a part here, and readability, isn't it? So it's not just, it's humans that are reading, and humanizing the content is so important for this.
That is extremely important. That's why the benefit driven feature, or the implied benefit, needs to be in there, because yes, you're putting in keywords specifically for Amazon spiders, for Amazon's algorithm, but every bit of the content on your page is going to be read by a human being. And if you want it to, it does not matter how SEO, rich, or how SEO optimize your listing is. If it doesn't speak to human beings, it will not get conversions. And
exactly.
Then you're not going to rank, because no conversions means no sales. So you definitely have to, also word it in such a way: clear, concise, benefit driven, keyword rich. And that's why there's a little bit of an art to it.
That's why the copywriters get paid a lot of money. Obviously, get paid very well for this. Okay, so the next most important thing, which most people will or disagree on, it's up for debate, but images. That's one of my favorite areas, and I know it's yours. Give us your breakdown on images.
Images are, in my humble opinion, and many others that I know, the most important aspect of your entire listing. Absolutely 100% the most important. And the reason is because human beings respond to visual media better. This is beyond Amazon. You can go to any study that's been done on this, and visual media will always outperform other forms of media. Also, the imagery is the only substitute that you have outside of your words for the customer being able to hold up your product and look at it, feel it, use it. Think about it from the buyer's perspective. When you go to the store and you realize, I need a new garlic press, you don't just grab the first one you see and throw it in your basket. More than likely, you hold it, check the weight, make sure that at very least, make sure the one you got's not broken, and then you put it in your basket. Your potential customer cannot do that on Amazon. So you have to show them. So that's why your images are very important. Now, of all your images, the main image is absolutely the most important. And that's because it drives the sessions. It drives the click. It is the thing that they see when they're searching.
Yeah.
And so obviously Amazon has rules in place for a reason, primarily because it works the best. It keeps it clean, but it also works the best. Have an image, white background, taking up 80% or more of the whole image. basically you got to think about it like it's a dating profile. It's got to be the best picture that you have of that product. It's got to be just awesome looking, nice, glossy, bright background, every, as many angles as possible. Yeah, it's totally got to pop, right? So then you have to think, especially after statistics were released every year around holiday season, at least 70%, if not more, of holiday shopping took place on a mobile device. So you should think immediately when you're setting up your listing, your main image not only has to be awesome, but you have to optimize it for mobile. That's, crucial, because it could be more than half of the traffic coming to that search page is going to be on a mobile device. Well, little things that people may not know, especially in the beginning, is your image will look different based on how you uploaded it in a mobile device. One thing that I learned the hard way was perfectly square images and rectangular images, meaning the width is either wider or the same length as the height in pixels. They appear smaller. The only way to get your image to appear larger is for the length to be longer than the width in pixels. Yeah. So you're looking for basically a portrait, and for some reason it doesn't happen this way on a PC. In a PC, everything's a perfect square, but in mobile, you can go right now, search for anything. You'll notice some pictures, for some reason, the image just looks bigger. And I remember trying for weeks to cut out every single inch of background. Like, that's got to be it, right? It's just got to be the image has got to be big as possible. And still it wasn't working. For some reason, my image was like so much smaller than a couple of my other competitors until I found out that trick.
So for clarity, most people will upload, say, 1,000 by 1,000. They could upload, say, 1,000 by 3,000, for instance, to give you the length for the image, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and you want to play, I would give exact dimensions, except that it really will change based on the shape of your product.
Of course, yeah.
But you want to play around as much as possible with how much of the background you need to cut out to make it a portrait. But yes, definitely make it longer. If you have 1,000 pixel image in width, you should make it 1,500 to 2,000 pixels length, so that it shows up as big as possible, because that's going to, the bigger it is, the easier it is to notice in that search page. So that's huge.
That in itself is a big takeaway, because as you said, is the demand now is heading towards mobile. 70% of the sales take place there. So, if you're in a sea of all these garlic presses and you've got the largest garlic press on the page, it makes sense that you will stand out against the Me Too products even. So that's definitely worth a try. Okay, so moving on from the main image, we've got that in the bag. What are we doing with the rest of our images?
All right, so the rest of the images are obviously going to work towards actually getting the sale. As I said, you need to show your product from every angle, because it's going to take the place of the buyer actually inspecting your product. But there are a couple other things that you should consider too. And this is just basic, psychology brochure marketing, right? Like, imagine a really high-end brochure. What kind of images do you see in that? The first one I call a staged shot. This is where you give it a background that is relevant. For example, if you sell a potato masher, maybe make a nice little picture of it, like leaning against a potato on a cutting board. It looks nice. It sets the stage. That's the staged shot. The next one is, I call them action shots. A lot of people call them lifestyle shots. Yeah. The reason I call them action shots is because your lifestyle shot needs to also have your product in use. So if you sell a potato masher, take a picture of a model that represents your demographic, maybe a stay-at-home mom within a specific age range, using it. So A, it demonstrates how the product's used, and B, it shows your potential buyer your demographic using the product. And basically what that does is it helps them to picture themselves using it. If you can get your potential buyer to picture themselves using your product, that's it. You've landed the sale. They're at least adding it to their cart. Like, that's almost a given. So action shots do that for you. And then, because we live in a digital age, another great thing to take advantage of would be an infographic. And basically what that does is, as we discussed, visual media gets a much better response than anything else. Let's say you have a highly technical product, or let's say you just have a product that you can give more information about. Rather than putting it in the listing and hoping that they make it over to the text, you can put it right there in the image. So for example, if you have a running belt that has like 3 hidden pockets, you can put as your first bullet 3 hidden pockets, or you have a picture that has a little line that points to them and says, hey, right beneath this flap are 3 hidden pockets. Yeah. They're likely to see that more, and I mean it gets that feature across to them. So that's important. So those are the types of images I recommend. And then overall, I say I know a lot of people say, and I understand why they say it too. They tell people, don't worry about breaking the bank. You can take these images on your own, and that they say that to people to not scare them away. Like, hey, it's not going to be that expensive. While it doesn't have to break the bank, don't cut corners on this one. There are things that you're going to DIY. If you have the skills to DIY this stuff, go ahead. But if not, this is where you want to put some of your budget, because imagery, is
everything.
Your competition are the big brands. Don't think about all the other third-party sellers. It doesn't matter what they're doing. Your competition are the big brands. Those guys have the most beautiful, even if they don't put it on their Amazon listing, go to their website. You see those photographs? That's who you're competing with. If you don't look like that, you're not going to take their market, because it's their market share you're slicing away at.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind when you're going to go ahead and get some images created for your listing.
Definitely. I mean, when you look at, me and you reviewed a lot of listings over our time, and you've seen where people have spent money, what I call on the location, on the shot, and then you've seen the people that have spent money on Fiverr superimposing shit on top of their pictures, and it looks absolutely hideous. And so I'm going to be really contentious here, and because we had this conversation the other day, is I've started to, because I'm trying to roll out a test product every single month, to get the photographs that I want will become very, very expensive to do the tests. And so now I'll post it into the feed later. I'm going to give you my whole setup that I've used. And it does take time to get there. And I know that Kevin King's probably going to grab me by the throat, because it's like, you shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff. So what me and you, Anthony, have discussed, and I've sent you over some of my stuff that my setup, is that the only reason I'm doing this is because these are the test products, and it's also a better way to articulate to my main photographer when they move from a test phase into a proper product. And the reason I do this personally is because I've tested products off Alibaba. I've used the crappy images that come with them, try to botch them together in Photoshop, and they haven't worked. And then I've done another test product where I've had proper photos done, and it did work. So I needed a real good basis for my test. So I've now taken this on personally. So if you want to pop a message in the chat, guys, if you're after a list of all the equipment, everything that I do, and I shoot off an iPhone, I use the Camera Plus app, I use 5 light boxes, I've got the white paper, like seamless background drop, I shoot off acrylic reflective surface as well, and I've got all the tools. I've probably spent about £300 or £400, which is a good investment at this stage. I believe the images have come out pretty good, but I know there's that next level. But it's the difference to, will that customer understand that next level? So going on, because I'm a bit anal about images as well, I just want to, this is your show, but I just wanted to share something with the guys on the images. The way I structure them is very similar to what Anthony does. So I go for the main image. Sometimes I even include the packaging, just like a portion shot of it, just to give the customer know that you're a real outfit in terms of a good brand, etc. The second image is always, for me, is the infographic. It's the element of surprise, so that I will then show what a product does, and up to the 5 or 6 different uses using small images like icons and stuff, which really helps with breaking things up. You can also add when you're running your, I don't know, what's the word for them? Not your competitions. What's it on your page? I've lost my train of thought now.
Promotions.
Promotions. When you run a promotion, let's just say you're doing a 2-for-1, for instance. on that infographic, that second image, as people click through to that, I'll put the promotion in there as 2-to-1 to regenerate that demand behind it. And then after that, I start to roll into what we discussed, like the lifestyle shots, and I use overlay text. And then towards the end of the images, I'll go back to the white background product shots and show the variation. So there are many ways that you can achieve results, but I'm, like Anthony, a massive fan of doing images as best as possible. So don't shoot me when I say I've been doing my own ones, because they will eventually go out to the proper professional photographers. So do you want to cover anything else on images before we move on, Anthony?
No, I think that's that rounds it out about good.
Excellent. Okay, bullet points. Give me your rundown of that.
Bullet points are important for SEO. We have seen this. If you actually put in keywords, you'll notice on the search page on a PC that the search term is actually served up from either the bullets or the description. So we're under the impression that if all things are considered equal, as in sales velocity and the relative conversion rate, keywords in your bullets can possibly make a difference in ranking. So it's important. Now, as far as how to structure them, understand that you have mostly two different kinds of buyers that are going to be coming to your listing. The quick, like scanning, they know what they're looking for buyer, and then the person that wants to take a moment to do their due diligence and really read into it. So for that reason, you want to structure your bullet to speak to both audiences. So what we usually do is we'll use all caps, and we'll take feature, benefit-rich feature, in all caps, the shortened version, put it there, and then a dash, and then a more detailed description. So that way, the scanner, the person who's in a hurry, can just scan those all caps. Okay, I got the features that I need. And then the ones I really want to kind of dive in and learn more, there's more information for them as well. I know that a lot of people also like to use icons, things like check marks before every heading, all caps, in bullets. It just draws the eye. We haven't tested yet whether or not there appears to be a significant difference in conversion for that. But if it looks right on your listing and you like the way that it draws the attention, that's what's important, right? You do everything that you can to try and stand out, and that's not a bad way to do it. Even though you're going in more detail with your bullets, because your bullets are the part where you get to talk about your product features. This is important. Even if it's not a huge factor in ranking or even really that huge of a factor in conversions, it is a factor in if you don't have any bullets versus if you do, because that's the part that people look at to see, okay, this does have 2 SIM card slots because I was looking for a phone that had one. All right, that confirmed it. The little things that people need to know before they make that buying decision. So the bullets are important. So you want to give them those features. But even if you are going into detail, you do want to keep them concise because you're trying to get as much relevant information above the fold as possible. And on the PC, a lot of layouts cut it off after a certain point. So you want to get as many of your bullets above that cutoff point as possible. And then also in mobile, only the first 3 show up. Mm-hmm. So also keep your most relevant features within the top 3 bullets because those are the ones that show up in preview on mobile. And then just so you know, because it's important to know all this stuff and keep it in mind, bullets actually show up below the description snippet in mobile. So that's important to understand too. But yeah, keyword rich, benefit driven, concise features will really help flesh that out.
Okay, so that's after your title. Would you say the bullet points for keywords is the most beneficial? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and then from there it's the back end keywords. We'd say, yeah.
Well,
search
from there
terms.
it's the description. The search terms, it's weird. It's like Amazon's algorithm is weird, and it's kind of hard to figure out. The search terms are important for SEO, but it's almost like the search terms kind of tell the spiders what to index.
Yeah.
So it's like you take everything, including the keywords from your bullets and your description and your title, and repeat them in the search terms just to make sure that Amazon spiders know, no, you got to index for these. So it's almost like their bullets are just as important as like your title for that reason.
Okay,
but
so
they kind of serve different purposes.
Let's obviously elaborate on back-end keywords. You know, there's that big debate over there, separated by comma, repeat keywords, use the first 2 lines, etc. Do you want to give me your rendition of this?
Yes.
The glasses have come off. It's that serious.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. We haven't seen any reason, any indication to believe that commas are necessary. The system appears to be intelligent enough to figure that out. Amazon themselves tell you, though, keep your key phrases intact. So that means don't worry about repetition. I think that's the reason why they increase the amount of characters available is because they prefer you to keep the phrase intact. So that means if you sell a blue widget, and some major key phrases in your research, you found like blue widget obviously is one because that's relevant. But, large blue widget, maybe that gets a whole bunch of searches and you want to put that in there, then you would say blue widget, large blue widget, because that kept the phrase intact. You probably only want to do that for phrases that get at least some amount of search volume, but don't worry about repetition when you're keeping important phrases intact. Use the whole line before you move to the next one, because there has been research done, not just by us, but by others, to indicate that at least initially, everything beyond the first 2 lines doesn't appear to be indexed right away. It will eventually, but if you're trying to rank for stuff now and you're just launching the product, it's really important to give the machine what it needs to do it right now. Because over time, it's going to stitch together all of those phrases and start crawling out into the other search boxes. But those top 2 are really important.
Cool. Okay. Anything else to add there? What about in terms of indexing? Some people have said the index breaks, etc.
It is not a perfect machine, and every now and again you will find randomly for no reason terms like you're just not indexed for, even though it's right there. It's like on the first line. You just have to move some things around and test it. I mean, I've seen situations where this algorithm wonks out sometimes. I've seen situations where somebody didn't have a key phrase in their search terms, but they had it in their title. Yeah. We ran a promotion for them with a whole bunch of units, knowing that they would rank page 1. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, they didn't move. And we were like, what's going on? So we looked at the back-end search terms and saw that they didn't have them filled out. The moment he filled out the search terms with all of the relevant keywords that needed to be back there, as soon as it refreshed, his listing went to page 1. And we were like, oh, this thing's wonky, man. So you're telling Amazon what to index you for. It'll hopefully do it for everything, at least that's in the first 2 lines. Sometimes it'll weird out, though. At that point, your only recourse is to just move some things around, add like a word or take out a word and just try again.
Well, just for the audience, there is a tool out there that I use, which is called KW Index Checker. And so what that'll do is you cut and paste your back-end keywords into the app, and then it'll run a report for you, and it'll tell you which keywords are indexed and which aren't. And then you can delete those from them fields so that you can obviously move forward. That you can get that from the Chrome store. I think it's about $5 or $10. Okay, so description. So this is quite interesting when you're saying about the ranking from description. A lot of people tend to skip over that. They invest so much time in their bullets and everything else and their title on the back end, and they get to that stage and it's like, well, I'm going to have to fill 2,000 characters up with shit. What do I do here? So to make the best of the situation, because I've seen some descriptions just look either empty or just hideous, like a big block of text. So how should people lay these out?
Well, for starters, it should at least be noted that description does play a role in SEO, and there's probably to some degree a level of conversion it can for certain products. But I mean, I've seen products rank and do well with zero description. So I would say that it's not as important. Like literally no product description, blank, nothing there. And they're, top 5 in search, major search terms. So, but even still, if you want to make your listing look as professional as it can, you want to give information there. The description is probably the best place for technical specifications if you have a really technical product, or stretch those copywriting wings, man. Like put a story in there or something. So remember how we were talking about getting your potential buyer to picture themselves using the product? So like tell a story or something. Just fill it out for SEO purposes, if nothing else. The description's also where Google pulls from. Google spiders. So that's important to know if you ever want.
And now that it's
relevant.
on the mobile, it's above the bullets, isn't it, on the mobile?
Yes. So and it's also above the bullets. 201 characters are above the bullets. So it is important to put something there. I think tech specs there, or just a little bit of reinforcing information about the features and the benefits. Even though they don't show up in the mobile preview. It's still good to use bold tags and paragraph tags just to break it up. So if somebody does actually scroll all the way down to look at it, it's easier to read.
Worst case scenario, you could probably take some of your bullets, put a title, bold the title, use a paragraph tag, and then put some of the key points in there, and then a call to action at the bottom. Go up to the yellow button, press, money back guarantee, that kind of thing. Just some sort of call to action, even though you probably shouldn't. But you can put something in there is a form of encouragement, because obviously once people start to get there, they're actually scrolling past other people's products on their way down. So that's why I don't know. No one's really got any good data, because we're not inside the walls of Amazon to see if that is a waste of space. And
you'd have to have heat maps, which obviously we can't put heat maps on them. So I will say this though, I use my personal bullets or personal description portion. I put the manufacturer warranty in there, that little hijacker defense. Because Amazon will ask, well, was it in your listing? Yes, it was actually, if you'll notice the very last line under the description. So anyway.
Cool. Right, enhanced branded content, which is obviously leads us nicely from the description. Now, this is worth investing time on, because you can paint a picture of your brand, and you've got a lot more area to elaborate with images. What are you doing with the enhanced branded content yourself?
I am absolutely using it, and I think the reason why is because a colleague of mine, buddy, I do a lot of Facebook Live stuff with. He pointed out one day, when all brands are using EBC, all the other brands, all the other listing pages are just going to not look as good in comparison. It's going to become a standard, and people are going to equate brands that have this enhanced content are established brands versus these other little sellers. So even though some people it's mixed across the board. Some people are saying that they've seen increased conversions. Some people saying they haven't. Some people say that, they even think decreased conversions have occurred, although I don't see how that's possible. This all across the board. We don't have any real data for that yet, but I predict that in the future, not having it could lower your conversions. Like I think EBC will become the new baseline, and not having it could actually damage, just because you don't look as professional. And we use it I got brand new banners made for my Shopify site, and I put those banners and I use those as the main banner in my EBC. And it gives you all so much more room to really kind of flesh out details about your brand. A lot of people probably don't make it down there. They just kind of scroll and go, oh, that's real professional looking, and then go back up. But it's still a good place to put that information. If nothing else, it creates a uniformity. So you take the same banners and the same content, put it on your website, put it on your eBay listing. It makes you perceived as a larger brand at that point, which you want. Even if you want to be the mom and pop store, you want to be perceived as a brand to be reckoned with. And that, I think, helps you do that.
Definitely. I mean, I spent about 4 or 5 days on mine, putting mine together for one of my products, purely for the fact I treated it like I was creating a landing page, and I enjoy building them. But I went for the stage where, pictures tell the story. So I went, there's a format of up to 5 images where you get like a main avatar image. So I had the main product with the branded logo over the top of that. And then I broke down to each image, like the benefits and the stages, different shots taking place related to the product, including I used 2 new infographics I built for them. And then I created a title. Then I put a description in there, and then I put the description down in bullet points as well. So I think we've discussed this before. You've got the scanners and you've got the people that read everything, and you want to capture their attention. So definitely worth investing the time, but I think the jury's still out in terms of conversions. I haven't seen anything go through the roof. But then again, we've got to talk about the indexing factor.
Yeah. The last time I did the research, my personal products were not being indexed from the EBC content. One person in one of the groups that I'm in has said that he believes that his is, so that could mean that they're rolling out indexing. Another colleague of mine swears that the description, the normal HTML description that was underneath the EBC, is still indexed. I don't, like I said, first of all, if you did the job right, all of your main search terms should already be in the bullets, and the bullets are shown in precedence over description for keywords and SEO in Amazon anyway. But I do think that that's something A+ content is already indexed. So I think if EBC isn't indexed now, it will be. That's something they're definitely going to fix.
Yeah, I think what happens, you get so excited about creating, oh, look, it's a new feature in Amazon. You forget to do your benchmarking, work out what sessions you had prior. Did the sessions fall off a cliff in and around that date, So, but there's another thing that I don't know how true it is or what, but if you've still got, apparently someone says that if your listing still has the old description in the description area, is that you would still rank for that and it will bring up your page inherently. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I've heard a couple of people say that. Over. I don't know, but just in case, it can't hurt. I mean, when you create your listing, you have to create it before you can submit it for EBC anyway.
Yeah.
So go ahead and fill out that description anyway, it's not going to hurt, right? Put it there just to have another place for keywords to go, if nothing else.
Well, what I was going to say is that if we were armed with that knowledge before, you would have made sure that 2,000 characters that you put into the description anyway, you could almost write the same amount of content that you're going to do in your extended, what I call landing page. And so it would show up for those key terms. So you would get the best of both worlds. You get the visibility of when the user scrolls, plus the added aspect of that if it's been indexed. That's it, it's true. So anyone out there, feel free to drop us an email, danny@sellersessions.com, because I'd love to know if this is the case. We're not tested that. We're just riffing here at the moment. Okay, ready to move on?
Absolutely.
Voting, reviews, help ranking? Yes, no, in between? What's the data saying?
All right. Well, we did gather some data for a blog post that I did not too long ago, just to see if there was a strong correlation between upvotes and higher ranking. There does not appear to be any algorithmic correlation. Just because if there was, then we would see more a larger percentage of higher votes or more votes ranking. So there doesn't appear to be an algorithmic correlation. However, it's foolish for us to think that there isn't a psychological factor. I mean, if positive votes, if those are the only ones that are visible, that's obviously going to have a positive effect on conversion, as opposed to if negative votes are visible. And for that reason, when we did this research, we discovered that a very large portion of the visible votes of the voted up content under the review section of the top 10 products for different keywords on page 1, very large portion of them are positive reviews. So that does tell us there's a psychological factor at play, that it will help, even if there's not an algorithmic relationship, it will help conversions if your negative reviews are hidden.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so we won't be telling people to go to Fiverr to start getting their negative stuff to vote down then. Okay, right, moving on. Here comes the black hat stuff. I can feel it in my bones. Wish lists.
Yes.
Talk to me about the wish list thing. Give me the full breakdown, your testing, your hypothesis, the whole thing. Your shoe size.
So right off the bat, all of this is speculation. But I'm not the only one that speculated this. There are other people that have released information saying that they believe that listing activity is considered in the algorithm when it comes to ranking, to a much lesser degree than the other stuff. So anecdotally, this is entirely just a study that we did just to see. We took a product that we have access to, and through a friend of a friend, hired one of these services that offers SEO, that's what they call it, right? Where they rank your product without you actually doing promotions.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't given any details on what they did. I wasn't even given details on the name of the company. Literally, I was told, pay my friend through a personal PayPal account and he'll handle the rest.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Well, we did our best to reverse engineer it. No idea all of the factors that are involved. And from what I hear, it's somewhat of a complex process. Mm-hmm. But the product that we tested this with made it to page 1 for 2 of the 3 keywords we chose with no promotions. And one thing we did notice was that, you know how there's a list of most wished for products in every category? In the subcategory, this product made it within the top 10 of the most wished for, and it wasn't there prior to this experiment. So that told us that at least adding to wish list was part of the process. So then we decided to start trying to calculate, trying to gather data. Basically, I had my VA help me with this, and we looked at the most wished for list. Those are public, right? You don't know what products are in somebody's wish list, but you know what's most wished for. Okay, you can Google that. So we looked at most wished for in just every, like randomly, just every category, you know, starting from like the first one down, whatever. And we looked at all the products on the first page, which was the first 10, right? So the first 10 most wished for products in every subcategory. And then we used the most relevant keyword and searched for it to see if it was on page 1. And we found a pretty large percentage of them were. Now, which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Maybe they were wished for because they were ranking. Mm-hmm. However, there was just as many big brands, which you expect those to be wish listed, as there were third-party sellers. And also keep in mind, the wish list can have the most random stuff on it, right? Like just out of nowhere, because we actually looked into some people's public wish list just to see if there was like, you know, any trends. And we noticed that, you know, just you get the most random stuff on there. So it would appear that there is a strong indication that the correlation between wish lists and a ranking is a little bit stronger than, you know, then there not being a relationship at all.
Right. Good. I think there's a nice takeaway there, but obviously we're not encouraging black hat activity. Okay, so moving on. Do stock levels affect ranking? And if so, how?
Well,
tell us about the test first.
Okay. For a long time.
Yes or no? Yeah.
For a long time, you know, that was something that people were really concerned about, was whether or not stock levels, inventory levels, you know, hurt ranking once you started running out. So we actually ran, we collected data on this. The only way that we could do it was to explicitly look for all the listings that say, only 20 units left or only 19 units left, because Amazon does publish that information. So we tried to find as many of those as humanly possible. And we looked at, the first 2 pages of as many search terms as we could find to find as many of those as we could. And then we used camel to see if there was a BSR fluctuation over the past 90 days to kind of correlate whether or not there was a rank change as the product was coming into being out of stock. And even though the sample size was pretty small, what we found was there didn't seem to be a strong correlation at all, actually, with lowered stock levels and BSR range. So it doesn't actually look like running out of stock negatively affects your ranking. Now, when you do run out of stock,
yes,
obviously it affects your ranking because you're out of stock. And some people have speculated that the amount of time you're out of stock will have an effect too. Like, there are people who have run out of stock a few times, unfortunately, and they report that the longer they've been out of stock, the more difficult it's been for them to re-rank. Some people can be out of stock for a week, and then it's like they're back in the same spot they were, 2 days later. And then some people have to run promotions and almost start over again because they were out of stock for months. But there doesn't appear to be any correlation between your inventory levels and ranking on the way there.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so that kind of covers that one off. Then the next one, what about reviews? We know reviews influence people in terms of decision making, but what about reviews influence on the algorithm itself for ranking?
We did look into that as well, because that's a big one, right? Everybody wants to know, and there's a lot of people that seem to be convinced that review velocity or just the sheer number of reviews does have some kind of an impact. But I can say that based on our data, it doesn't look like the number of because if reviews had any kind of algorithmic relationship with the ranking, then that would mean that by necessity, listings with more reviews or with a larger number of reviews coming in within a certain period of time would actually rank higher. But we didn't see any indication of that at all. Yeah. It does appear that review rating has a huge impact, but that's for obvious reasons. That's because conversion rate is at play there. Yeah. But the actual algorithmic relationship between reviews, there doesn't seem to be any correlation at all, because we saw just as many listings with less than 30 reviews ranking or outranking products with thousands of reviews. So it clearly has a lot more to do with conversion rate and perceived value than it does with an actual algorithmic relationship.
Okay, so staying on this factor here, but in this time with variations, obviously that can play some people seem to think that plays a part. What's your take on it?
Again, all of this stuff can only be speculated based on the data that Amazon gives us access to. But we did want to also test that. So we actually went out and started looking at all of the high-ranking products we could to see if there was a larger number of listings with variations. And while we can't, there's no way to say yes for certain we can say that the algorithm favors listings with rankings. I can tell you, and you can look at yourself too. If you do, in fact, the blog post actually listed all the key phrases that we search for. Look up hot pads, look up running bell, look up garden trowel, look up jump rope. All of these common items, many of them popular amongst private labelers, you will see that there is a pretty significant number of listings within the top 10 results on page 1 for those search terms that have variations. Even if the variation itself isn't live, they're not in stock, there were so many listings that had variations. It was enough for us to say there's something going on here. I don't know why all of the top ranking products would have variations, but a lot of them did. So
yeah. But we've kind of discussed this before in previous discussions, that there are some cases where people will make a listing with a variation for future use, won't they? Even if they're running with a single product. So that'll play into maybe some of the factors there. Okay, so let's talk about
it
Amazon.
appears too.
It does, yeah?
Yeah, it appears too, because a lot of those listings, you'll see that they don't, like, you can tell there's a variation, but there's not a stock for any of the other variations. But it's still ranking, so that tells me that there's something in the algorithm that looks for that, for variety.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What about Amazon favoring 1P products, bestsellers, Amazon choice? Talk to me about that. That's a big one.
Okay, so first, let's define 1P is first party. So you and I are 3P. We're the third party seller.
Yeah.
But Amazon also has products that it sells itself, and that's called 1P. That means that that the seller wholesales to Amazon, and unless it's the case of Amazon Basics, in which case then they actually private label it themselves. Yeah. But either way, in all those cases, Amazon is the seller. And again, all we can look at is the listings. But we search listings in as many categories as we could think of: kitchen, baby, pet. We search things like Petgate, flea shampoo. Looking at the top results. I think for that one we did like the top 12 and on page 1. And again, there was a pretty overwhelming number of products sold by Amazon. Okay. In fact, I'll share a snippet. Amazon only controls 17%. According to statistics we looked up, 17% of the products on its platform. That means that the remaining are all sold by third-party sellers. Okay, so Amazon controls 17%. However, they hold 36% of the top spots. So they control that much of the market, and yet they have over a third of all top spots in ranking products that they sell. That is overwhelming data that suggests that Amazon favors products that they sell themselves.
I mean, if that was Google, they'd get hung, wouldn't they? Yeah.
It's their playground, though. They can do whatever they want.
Right. They own it. Do whatever they like with it.
And then there was also a strong correlation with bestsellers. Now, that could be a chicken and egg situation. Maybe because they're ranking so well, they get bestseller badges. But there was a lot of bestseller badges for top search results. Yeah. So.
Okay. What about price? How does that affect ranking, and if it does at all?
Okay, so we also looked at listings and their rank position as it relates to price, and we found in an overwhelming number of instances there was no correlation whatsoever, no indication at all that higher ranking items did so because they had higher list prices. Because there was a rumor for a while, people were saying that they thought, hey, if you set your list price at a really high place, Amazon views your product as being more valuable. There is no indication whatsoever. I mean, you can look yourself, go through listing after listing. There is nothing that indicates that at all. The only relationship with ranking that price appears to have is conversion rate. If you have the best value, that doesn't necessarily mean the lowest price. Yeah. For example, if you sell a Versace bag for half price, you could still be 30% more than the cheapest guy, but that bag is going to rank like a mofo because of the value. If you have the highest value in your price, you get the highest conversion rate, you will rank better. But there's no indication that your list price has anything to do with that.
Cool. All right, last question from me before we hand over to the audience. Give us the 5 or so key attributes for optimizing for mobile. Okay.
Very first thing is that image. We talked about the main image. The main image pixel dimensions. It's huge. First 80 characters of your title, huge. The first 201 characters of your description. the first 3 bullets, and then I think there's only really 4. Those are the things you're looking at when you're mobile optimizing.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll put you on the spot enough now. Now it's time for the audience to put you on the spot. So,
Sure.
Richard, what are they saying in the room? Do you want to?
Yeah, we've got quite a raft of things that have come through. So Constantina has asked, do I need to include the hot keyword on the listing title, or will it be picked by A9 from the description? I've noticed that if it's not in the title, we don't rank. I think I find follows.
Well, I don't think that you need me to answer that, because you answer it yourself. If you're not ranking when it's not your title, you should probably put in your title. As I had mentioned before, over time, Amazon will stitch together its own phrases and kind of like, okay, maybe you guys are familiar with a tool called Keyword Inspector, right? You can run a thing called a reverse ASIN search, which basically takes all of your competitors' keywords and tells you what they rank for. Like, it just tells you what keywords that competitor ranks for. If you do it on a brand new listing, you'll get this many keywords. If you do it on a listing that's a year old, even the same listing, if you wait a year, do it again, you're going to get 4, 5, 6, 12 times as many keywords. Well, that's because over time, the algorithm is working to rank that product, index that product for those key terms. Right off the bat, though, there's certain places that keyword needs to be. The title is the most obvious, the most evident.
Okay.
Next question.
Right. Henning is asking, he was ranking top 2, selling 50 to 100 units. Then he went out of stock. It's been out of stock for a month. Should he pause the listing to get the honeymoon phase faster again, or is it better to leave it as is and fill in available stock as soon as it comes in?
We haven't fully tested this yet. To my understanding, though, I don't think pausing the listing is going to change anything. Like, it's still in the catalog. Amazon still knows you're not in stock. It was in the catalog, and now it's not being shown for anything. It's not. You're not fooling them. However, you still might consider pausing like, if it's a matter of, I've never paused a listing before, but if it's a matter of like just pushing a button, you may consider it, only because sometimes Amazon likes to mess around, and this really aggravates me. They'll have units that can be returned to stock that were returns, and they'll have them in limbo between fulfillment centers, and then they'll make your listing live, and it'll say in stock in 3 days, and it's only going to be 1 unit. And that's going to gather those impressions, and that's kind of going to mess up your numbers a little bit. So you might decide to pause it just to avoid that, if nothing else.
Next one.
Okay. Next one. So Mercy asked, this sounds something similar to what happened to you, I think, Danny. Somehow I cannot change my title anymore. I need to call Amazon seller support. What's that all about?
Anthony, do you want to jump on that one? I can follow up with it.
Yeah, Amazon. It's Amazon catalog team can be some of the coolest people and some of the hardest people to work with. And it almost seems arbitrary sometimes, and they make these decisions, right? So basically what happened was they shut down the ability for anybody other than themselves to make contributions to your listing, to your catalog information. Don't know why. Sometimes they do. In my experience, because I used to have clients, right? And they did this to us all the time, like all the time. And it's really annoying. Trust me, they can do more annoying things than that, though. Like switch out your images and not tell you. But in the event that they lock down the title, you can do a couple things. First thing I did was called in custom out. Hey, that's our listing. We're the brand owner. What in the crap are you doing? That doesn't work, by the way. You can't cuss them out. They don't care. In fact, sometimes you can get cussed back out, which is really interesting. Somebody from the catalog team gets on there. They're American. They have a little bit higher status than seller support. They can definitely be mean to you. What I found works is, so we fell into a routine. This is actually how we were able to fix this from that point forward. I would get on the website. We have, if you don't have a website and you're not brand registered, do that, because that makes life a lot easier. When you're brand registered, your listing contributions take precedence over everybody except for Amazon, and they're less likely to lock you out. If they do, it's easier to get it back. How you get it back? You get your website, right? Simple WordPress site, doesn't matter what it is. You take the exact verbiage of the title and put it on a product page in your website for that product. Then you call in the Seller Central and you say, hey, I'm trying to change the title because it's not correct. I can show you the manufacturer website if you'd like, so you can verify. And they'll go, sure, what is it? And you send them to the website. See, it's not correct. Your website doesn't have it correct. I really need to change it. Oh, okay. They'll push the button and say, we'll have it changed in a couple hours. Then you say, we're actually the brand owner. It'd be great if we could make these changes ourselves, because it's probably going to change a few times with our testing. Sometimes that doesn't work, but sometimes it does. It's really a switch. If you can just get them to flip it, the next time you try to change your title, you should have control over it. Every time I've done that, it's worked. Again, if it doesn't, you just got to go through the long route and try it again.
Okay. Art's asking a question about the Twitter link tip that you provided. The Twitter link on the listing does not have keywords, just some letters. How would using that link improve keyword ranking?
I don't know. It's magic. I have no idea how it works, but we tested this. I personally had a product. I ran promotions to it using the Twitter link. I had two different times, and both times there was a set of core keywords that it was. Now these were established listings; they weren't new listings, so I'm not sure how that played an effect. But the core keywords that were most relevant to it, it jumped in rank for all of them. So I would assume that anything that you're ranking for already because of your title, and when I say ranking for, I don't mean ranking well for. If you're within 300 places for a keyword maybe that's in your title or that's in your canonical URL already, or at least can be inferred from your canonical pretty easily, you're not going to know unless you test it for you. But I can say that I also have colleagues that use that link a lot, and they say that for us, it appears to work as well as super URLs used to, like a year and a half ago.
Cool.
Okay.
Just to let guys know, I've just posted the link to the keyword checker tool in the chat for anyone needs it.
Yeah, we had quite a few questions for that. Yeah, cheers, Danny. Right, next one off Thomas. Now, this is tension around the title. So he's asking, what about using your brand name as Amazon recommends, but it takes up a lot of characters in the beginning of the title? So there's a bit of tension there. Brand name important?
All right. Well, I only think it's important if you feel like if you are strategically trying to build a kind of a perception for your brand, then it's important, because at some point your brand name will become a search term, but you have to do a lot of volume, and that's going to take some time. For the purpose of ranking now, you're right. It takes up, it actually does take up real estate in your title, and it's almost like why. And here's another key tidbit. If you ask Amazon's catalog department, they tell you need to have the brand in your title. If you ask seller support or seller performance, they'll tell you don't need to have your brand in the title because it's already on the listing under the brand section. Anyway, so what we do is, if you're not purposefully trying to create a keyword out of your brand, don't put it in the beginning. Either make the title as relevant as you need to without the brand. Like, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. Like, save that as a last thing. But if you have space at the end, then you just put whatever. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. I had a kitchen product that we don't sell anymore, and it was like blah, 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 blah. At the very end, quality kitchen gadgets by brand name. So if you have the room, go ahead. If not, don't worry about it. You might run into an instance where randomly Amazon goes on the warpath for some reason in a category and locks all of the titles down and says, hey, you got to have your brand name in it. If that's the case, then you got to play by their rules. I mean, there's not really much you could do there anyway. I've been in that situation before too. Didn't have the brand name or handed it at the end. And then they were like, oh, well, we're changing all the titles in this category. And then they moved it to the front and I had to play with it there, whatever. But in the meantime, as long as you have control, it's really all about what your goals are.
Okay. Can I play devil's advocate with the brand name thing here?
Sure.
To put it in perspective, right? We're not Nike, we're not Apple and companies like that. Quite a lot of people will stick their badge on the product and sell it for Amazon, okay? The key thing that they need to do is start selling product. You can worry about brand later, but in the beginning, you need visibility, you need conversion rates, you need to be able to sell your product. You've got 80 characters to put your best foot forward. So you need to show the customer some ankle. And if your first part of your 80 characters is being taken up by some long, random, blown out brand name, then you're not going to have room for your keywords, you're not going to have room for your benefits and explaining to the customer. Because at this stage, they may be looking at your product because of the picture, not because they give a shit who you are if they've never heard of you. So just devil's advocate there. Just be aware that brand, yes, important, but you need to get to a stage of getting to base one of selling something first.
Yep.
Okay.
Good point.
Yeah. Next question.
Next one. So Seneca's asking, does the canonical ever change?
Only when you change your title. It's based off the title.
Okay. Excellent. Remain's asking, if I'm selling watches, would you have a photo of the dimensions or one with a watch around the wrist? So an action photo, I guess.
Both. That's called an action photo, and that's called an infographic. You would have both. I mean, you have probably 7 or 9 or at least 5 slots, right?
I think you may be talking about his main image, but what I would say on that is look at the other style images, look what the bestseller is, and see what they're doing, because they would have done a lot of optimizing for their main image as a base.
My main product, it's used on people. It's basically an apparel accessory, and the best thing you'll do with an accessory like that is split test the watch by itself or the watch on a wrist. Split test that, because you'll be surprised that more than likely your category is the same as mine, and that like every other one uses either one style or the other. You don't know what's going to work for your particular product. So that's the thing. Like, you're going to have to split test, like put one on there for 3 weeks, put another one on there for 3 weeks, and see which one gets you more sessions and conversions.
Yeah. Okay. Next one remains asking, what do you think about CG graphics renders instead of photos?
Okay. So photos have always outperformed for us. Now, I know people that have CGI, computer-generated pictures, and they say that those did worlds better for them because it provided a clearer, crisper image. My clients that have used both, the real photos always outperformed, just because it looked like, even the ones that looked like computer-generated, if you look close enough, you'll see that it's still real, and that real image, for some reason, it just made a significant difference in their conversions. So
psychological, isn't it? You can spot a fake. So okay, next one.
Getting a lot of question about Twitter. I can see half a dozen people wants you to re-explain the Twitter thing.
Okay, if you go to your listing and you click on the Twitter icon, it'll provide for you a tweet that you can then press tweet and tweet. In that tweet, there is a link to your product. We haven't tested. If you do it now and then do it again in 15 minutes, the numbers in the link will change. We haven't tested what that string means yet. We can't quite figure out what it means yet. We don't know if the change affects, QID or anything like that. So it might be best to generate it and then use it as quickly as possible. But I used it over the course of 4 days. And the most relevant keywords that I track, I actually increased rank for by using it in a 4-day-long promotion for all of the keywords. So it appears to give keyword juice to your title keywords, the most important keywords, that your product is relevant for.
Okay. Chris is asking, what about using competitors' keywords, i.e. reverse asyn, in the back end versus using specific search terms, even if they're unrelated?
I would definitely say use search terms, especially if they're relevant, because relevance is probably the most important factor. And then I will caution against using competitor like brand names or things that are more relevant to them.
Yeah.
Rarely does this happen. It's not a common thing, but I have seen people get their listings turned off for a day because the competitor searched for their brand name. This person's listing popped up and they went to Amazon and said, hey, these guys are using my brand name in their keywords. Now, they can't prove that, but Amazon can. And Amazon looked and said, oh, that's a violation. You got to take that down. And then it was the listing was delisted until they took them out. So that was like probably 12 hours lost on the catalog. Kind of annoying. It's up to you whether or not you want to take that risk, because some major brands, whom I don't see actually going after you if they're like a really, really big brand. Some major brands are big keywords in Amazon, so you may consider that. But you want to stay relevant for as much of that space as possible. I personally do put major brands, even though if Amazon ever found out, they would say, look, these aren't relevant, take them out. And that would suck. But in my space, they are relevant, even though the algorithm, may vary in their opinion on that.
Yeah, okay. All right. Chris or Art is asking, what about enhanced brand content instead of description?
I believe that was the whole conversation on EBC. Is this going to be recorded? Will everybody have access to this entire thing?
There'll be a replay for tomorrow.
Yeah. So they can go back.
I think you needed to elaborate on that question a bit more if he wants to post it again.
Yeah, so Art. Chris was asking something similar. Enhanced brand content, not indexed, versus non-enhanced brand content.
I think what he's saying is that versus, do you go for brand content? What we discussed earlier, just as a top line, there's a possibility, which we haven't tested, that if you put the original description in the description area, then when you change over to enhanced branded content, you will still be searchable on the original description area, but obviously it'll bring up your product page.
Yes. So fill out your description like normal, and then apply for EBC.
Any more questions here, Richard?
Yeah, Chris has got an interesting one. I wonder if it's against terms of service to say in your listing, add to wish list.
If you ask Amazon, they'll tell you yes. There's nothing in the terms that say anything about a wish list, though. But I have a theory, I have a prediction that one of the next big changes in their terms, which they have them every 6 or 8 months, will probably address wish lists. But for now, if you ask Amazon, can I do anything? They'll tell you no. But technically, there is no verbiage that discusses wish lists at all in their terms.
Okay, excellent. Now, there's a couple of questions coming up that are talking about price. So Konstantina is asking, what about doing regular price changes? And Mike is asking, would you start with a higher price and lower the price until there is the optimal price, CR ratio, or would you do it the other way around? So both.
I would do it the other way around. We do it the other way around. Everybody I know, and I know a handful of guys that are doing $100, $150, $200, $250,000 a month. They always launch the same way. They launch at the lowest profit margin that they can stomach, and then they increase their price by $1 every 2 days or 3 days or whatever your target area. Just increase it slowly. And basically what happens is in the beginning, they keep it low first and run a bunch of PPC and then do promotions until they're ranking where they want to rank. So you keep the price really competitive until you get to a place in your rank where you're getting a lot of traffic and converting really well. And then start slowly raising the price. And what happens is you shouldn't see much change in your daily sales until you hit a price point where people don't like it. As soon as you hit massive resistance, revert back $1 or $2, and the market has told you how much they think your product is worth. And that's how you run it. I also suggest not running a perpetual sale price, you're talking about changing price regularly. The best way to do that is to find the value of your actual product, like what your product is worth. Sell it for that. You make that your list price, and then start playing with actual sale prices that reflect real sales, because the market is starting to get wise to this. Set the MSRP really high, and then make a perceived value of, oh, look, you're saving 80% by buying it at this price. They're calling us out on our BS for that one. So flip the script on them and give them something they're not used to. Sell at a list price, and then run sales at your sale price. And that's also a really good way for you to test, constantly test your pricing to see what parts of the year respond to different prices, because it does change seasonally sometimes too.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very
much.
much.
Do a couple more there, Richard?
Yeah, Shia was asking Seller Central versus Vendor Express. Which one is better?
Vendor Express is much more friendly, but you may not like the stuff that you have to do to be a vendor. I mean, you have to sell your products to Amazon. They may not offer you enough money. They take over your listing, and if they don't do a good job, which we all know Amazon's catalog team seems to suck at actually putting up a listing, then you might not get any volume at all. So, that's something you're going to have to do your own research on to decide what kind of relationship you want to have with Amazon.
Yeah, I like to sleep at night with my relationship. So, okay, last one here then. John was asking, what are the risks concerning doing infographics? There's question marks. He was told he cannot do call outs.
I'm not honestly sure what Amazon says, what information Amazon says can or can't be in a listing. I've never or in an image. I've never seen problems with infographics before, though. Technically, they say you can't have text in an image if it's your main image, but you can absolutely have text in an image otherwise. And so far, I haven't seen any issues. Just don't be stupid with it. Like, obviously, don't put the URL to an outside website in it, because we already know Amazon doesn't want you redirecting their traffic somewhere else. Don't put things like, make sure you leave a review. Don't mention reviews at all, as a matter of fact, in anything but your follow-up sequence, please. And then that might not be the best place to mention wish lists either, because we know that images are heavily monitored. Titles and images are heavily monitored by the catalog team. So
cool. One more.
So we've got one here from Chris regarding search terms. Is it okay to include other brands in your search terms, or do you get downranked or blocked for that keyword? I think you've already covered part of that.
Yeah. We haven't seen any such thing as downranking or blocked. But if your competitor complains on you, then Amazon's rules state you can't have brand names in there. It's one of those slap on the wrist kind of punishments, but they will turn your listing off for however long it takes if they catch you and say, hey, don't put those back there. And then, mark my words, if you ever get caught for a slap on the wrist kind of thing like that, violate it, that's fine. When they catch you, revert and do what they say. Don't ever do it again, because I've had friends that were suspended. Now, they got their accounts back, but they were actually suspended for the dumbest things, and it's because they got more than 2 warnings.
Ouch.
Dumb things, like stupid dumb things. So,
yeah.
Cool. Are we good? Is there any more? Just one more to go, and then we can close out.
Johnny's just come in with, what is your PPC strategy?
Wow.
Which is probably a slightly...
Johnny, can I suggest you check out the PPC Roundtable on our YouTube channel? And there's an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes with a lot of information there. I think it'd be too long to get into right now. As
Big question.
Yeah. So, Anthony, where can people reach you, pester the life out of you, hurl abuse at you? What's the best way of getting you?
Or show you the love.
Okay.
Or show you the love, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, if you want to communicate with me, I'm actually in a lot of different places. So for those of you who are learning this Amazon thing. I've written 2 books, one for beginners and one for advanced folks, but still, you know, that encompasses everybody that's on the path learning how to do this Amazon thing. You can actually look those up on Amazon. It's the Bootstrapping e-commerce series. So just put in bootstrapping e-commerce and, you know, you'll see there. That's through my publishing company, Read and Write Publishing. So you can email me directly at anthony@readandwritepublishing.com. And read and write are spelled like names. At the time, I thought that was going to be really clever. Now I realize that was a terrible idea because it's really hard to explain to people. Go to Read and Write Publishing. They're like, oh, REID and WRIGHT. That's a pain in the butt. Anyway, so you can reach me directly there. Also, we were talking about optimization. Zonblast currently offers a product called Zon Optimize, where we will optimize your entire listing for you, do all the keyword research, etc. You can ask questions about that, which will get to me indirectly, but it doesn't go to my inbox at support@zonblast.com. Or if you just go to zonblast.com, there's like a little chat window that'll pop up, and you can bug Barkus about that. So that's the best way to get more information about what we talked about today, and also reach me.
Fantastic. Yep.
Okay, so guys, I want to say a big thank you for joining us this evening. I hope you got a lot of value from that. We're going to be back here on Wednesday, the 22nd of February, so put that in your diary. We'll be surprising you with our guest lineup for then also. If you want to partner with us, I want to say a big thank you to our partners. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, they support us in delivering this, and hopefully you're enjoying these webinars and getting good value from the content. So if you want to partner up with us, you can contact either me or Richard. It's Danny@sellersessions.com, Richard@sellersessions.com. Visit the website sellersessions.com, and don't forget to go and find us on YouTube and subscribe to the channel so that you can check out any of the replays. Your replays will be in your inbox in the morning. We love you loads. Thank you for your time. It's been great having you, and we will see you in session in 2 weeks' time. Goodbye.
Bye. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Anthony.
My pleasure.